wonderful Wednesday morning. I think we're currently sitting at about, what is this, episode 120, which is pretty cool. And yesterday did the audio a bit differently and found out why there was static at the end. So fix that, hopefully. Let me know, comment, all that sort of crazy stuff. We like to hear from you guys, and that gets back to our big picture point about finding ways to connect with one another, and specifically what that means with directly connecting with one another and what that looks like, and how do we create meaningful, purposeful relationships with each other. Getting away from the kind of the concepts of the big box stores and moving more to the, your local grocer, so to speak. And that's really how we get through this. I think that's not just how we get through this. That's really, in my perspective, the point of this past year of, we're going to go all back to normal and all this sort of stuff, but what does normal really mean? And do we really want normal? Or we just kick everybody off to the side of the road and could care less? And that's not what we want. We don't want that at all. Not one iota. So the topic for the day, as you will see on the description, is that in the scope of the last colony, what does a collapse look like? And I've done quite a bit of research, maybe too much, and gone down the rabbit holes in the depths. I've gone down Alice in Wonderland's hole, and it has led to incredibly strange places and strange findings on the internet. And on the on one end you have the Q goofballs, and on the other end you have sort of everything's fine, the rosy world. But I kind of take the perspective outside of the last colony that ultimately this is for the good. It has to be. It has to be about the lifting up of God's creation and it being fully realized, and that is through us, and ultimately through the Mashiach, through the Messiah, and all those sort of things. So we're incredible times. That's all I can say. And so, along with that, I would also have to say that with the last colony and the research that I've done, so one thing that I haven't talked about, and I'll leave it to the opening of the comic itself, but there is a natural disaster. So that's a piece of the puzzle. But one of the things that when I went through the research, it's not just one thing that would sort of send us down the path of Road Warrior, Mad Max sort of Thunderdome sort of paths here. There's more that it would be sort of a several things. It wouldn't be necessarily one thing. And certainly there's been indications, and then, you could argue that, well, be it the medical, that would be one area. I think we've seen pockets of that this past year, in regards to the medical field and the decisions being made and the information coming out from the NIH, CDC, and specifically the leaked emails. It's been a fun ride to watch. But outside of that, within the realm of the fantasy world, because God forbid any of this, like I said, I'm trying to make this perfectly clear over these past couple shows of the last colony. It would be an epic tragedy to have not only just go into war, but not only a civil war here in the United States. Epic tragedy. It'd be horrible. So I'm not calling for that. I don't want that. That's not what the last colony is about. It has never been about that. So I just want to make sure that's clear, that it's not what this is about. But we have to have, because of the story bleeds in that area, what's that world look like? We don't want to go in there when we're developing the story just uneducated and not have a roadmap, right? So any case of what are some things that could lead to this, one being sort of a financial collapse and that sort of thing, that could, and I think that would be certainly one. Another would be sort of like your EMPs. That's kind of on the list of like things that would like, or taking down, which we've already kind of seen to some degree with like it's not necessarily sort of the system going into collapse like this. Most recently, what was it? The pipeline, the Colonial Pipeline, right? That went in, that was a cyber attack. So that could be another sort of thing, sort of a cyber attack. And so you have all sort of these dominoes or these things colliding at the same moment in time. And it wasn't necessarily the collapse of the pipeline per se, of which could possibly have been turned on or not. There's obviously, and those working within the field would know much better what that is, particularly the ones working on the pipeline in terms of that information. But what I'm trying to get at here is more of the idea that it's always the reaction. Like like if you've learned anything this past year, it's our reaction of the reaction to the fear. The worst thing that we could probably do to our immune system is fear. Aside from all the other possibilities of what we can do to our immune system, but fear is certainly one of them, in my opinion. And this sort of thing that, I mean, you saw pictures. What was this in Florida? Where apparently they weren't having I don't know where they were having a problem. Maybe I can't comment on that. But you see these crazy pictures of people. It had to have been a joke. I'm praying that it was a joke, because you have people that are like filling up a laundry basket, which has holes. For those, it's not like your Rubbermaid container, which isn't made for gasoline anyway. But you have people like filling up their laundry basket. What are you going to get? You're going to get that much gasoline in that, and then you're going to anyway, those are the types of things. It's our reaction. I think that is also a major component to this whole idea of collapse, right? So again, I just want to make the point. I don't want this to happen. I don't think could happen, but it's also sort of a thing that this is where the story gets at. And I keep repeating it, to the core values of what it's really about, which is what I think we've hopefully learned this past year, is going back to how important our community is around us. Because that's one of the things that of course, in our scenario, is that our perspective, and based upon the research, is that it wouldn't necessarily be those things. It would be a combination of things. And on top of it, the race war sort of a thing, I could potentially, it seems like it keeps getting these jump starts, but it doesn't get fully going. God, thank God, because it would be an absolute tragedy. That's not how we're going to fix any of our problems, right? But it's sort of a thing that it could be in a combination with that, with sort of a fifth column. And if you haven't heard sort of a fifth column or like a Tet offensive, go look at that. It's a really good research project in terms of what happened in Vietnam, where they basically celebrated a holiday and in Vietnam, and the United States Armed Forces and those sort of things all kind of, relaxed that day. And then it was an all-out offensive from the Vietnam communists that went after and heaved ho and really took care of business. And that was kind of a major turning point in the war. That's a really brief synopsis, and there's lots of other details and information. But to suffice, essentially what I'm saying is that would be, again, there's so many other things that would be in combination to this. And I think we're experiencing some of them in pockets and those types of things. But I will say this, that I do also think with all of that in combination, that it comes down to, which I've said in the past, that it would be more of a tribal sort of a thing, that it would be from neighborhood to neighborhood, or even neighbor to neighbor. And then our ability to work together through that. If sort of the whole world shut down, how would a community come together? I know for a fact, in particular, in the area that I live, that there are communities that if the lights, no joke, this is no joke, and there are pockets around the world, certainly in the United States, that because we live here and we're aware of that, but there are communities in my region that if the power turned off, it would continue on as if nothing happened. It's no joke. There are pockets like that. And so that's where I'm kind of getting at, is that there would be certainly groups or communities that would still find a way, in particular, still find a way to traffic or make dope or all sorts of crazy stuff. So we live in wild times, crazy times, but within the realm of the last colony, there is certainly communities and groups that are able to coalesce, but there's also sort of this fifth column, this Tet offensive that is ultimately started. You have, of course, your MS-13, you have your, what else? Any type of marauding gangs and those types of things, be it biker gangs. You would also have good or bad. You would have other cartels. I can't think of all of them right now, that are actually taking philosophies and strategies that were done in Rwanda and Africa and those types of things. And so they're adopting them in in Mexico and bringing them up here. Those are real things happening currently right now in terms of human trafficking and those types of things. But I think the big thing here is, and there's so much more to this topic, this is just glazing over it. And I guess my point is that with all those things, you would have to have within the last colony, there would be these entities that get things going. And then you would have sort of the big crews, be it Russia, China, that would be sort of the Red Dawn sort of situation, right? Where they would come into, and then they would ultimately, they're the ones cleaning up the mess or being that savior sort of a thing. So that's kind of the scenario that the last colony subscribes to. God willing, it doesn't happen. And I'm not predicting it to happen. This is not what the last colony is. It's not a prediction or some sort of thing. It is actually just a way to coalesce. I'm intrigued by the ideas of, how do I say? I'm intrigued by the ideas of what civil war would look like. I'm just intrigued by this subject. It's been a fascinating research project. And like I said, this is only sort of like barely the icing on top. I mean, we haven't even got to the core things, or like the political things that could take place, or what that would all mean, and how communities would come together. You sort of have the what would the Second Amendment, all these types of huge questions that really get to the core of this all overall discussion. And ultimately, what's all about is the distances we will go for one another. That's it. It's as simple as that. That's all I can basically say. There's my exit music. You guys are awesome. I love you guys. Absolutely have fun with this show. I'm absolutely having a ball doing this on YouTube. So keep doing amazing things, and we will see you later. Bye, guys.